just get here with the world's smallest VR-ready gaming PC, the MSI Trident 3. This one here was basically given awards back in 2017 and 18 for its compact size. It's small. You can take this to a LAN party. It's got support obviously for the 8th and 9th generation processors, to be honest, because the Intel H310 does support the 9th generation 1151 socket type of CPU. You can see here up to 32 gigs of memory. The machine that I have here actually has 16 gigs and a GTX 1060, okay, with 6 gigs of GDDR5. It depends on the configuration. More or less, you're going to get the same thing, but you can actually choose different configurations of the Trident 3. We're going to look at this more in detail so you can see what I'm talking about. Comes built in, obviously, with a lot so that you don't have to really do anything. You just plug it all in and away you go. The wireless is there. The Ethernet is there. Power supply is external. It's a brick that you just plug in on the wall. You've got nice cooling going on in here, and I'm going to show you the temperatures on this machine. Lots of plugs, okay, and we're going to look at those more in detail. But, the one thing that really stands out for me is the silent cooling. I do like the design of this. You can see at the front of this desktop, you've got your LED for the hard drive, your headset mic, you've got a USB Type-C and Type-A connectors, and the VR connector there as well. You have lots of openings here. That mesh that you see is for the cooling, for the graphics card, for example, that is underneath that and on the sides. So you're going to get that ventilation going through there. And I'll open this up in a moment so you can see what I'm talking about. At the back of this slim guy, you've got also a whole bunch of connectors as well. Obviously, the graphics card is right here, the 1060 GTX with the HDMI and DisplayPort and DVI out. You got more VR link, HDMI, USB, and Ethernet plugs. Everything all at the back, just like you would need, along with some audio ports as well. Now, you can stand this up vertically, or you can have it lying down flat horizontally. It's up to you. It comes with a nice little base, as you can see here. And by the way, I thought I'd mention this too. I'm looking at the white version, which is the Arctic white, but they do come in black as well. Okay, so if you're not into the white color, you've got the black option. Here at the top, you've got the RGB Mystic MSI lighting effects that you can control through the software. And the power button is at the top there as well. So that's pretty much it for the outside. Underneath it, basically, you've got the rubber feet there so it doesn't slide all over. You got a good grip should you want to put this horizontally. And, well, there's the GTX NVIDIA GeForce logo there. You can upgrade this, actually, from the Aero GTX 1060, which is this card right here, to a 1070, right? As long as you get the right specs, the same size card, you can actually take this one out and put it and upgrade it. Same thing with the processor, which is underneath this blower fan, and the memory. Now remember, you do have limitations based on this board, right, with the H310 chipset, so there's only so much that you can do with that, but still, you can upgrade this, which is nice. And it's easy to get in and to take things apart, so I'm quite impressed with this layout, like it a lot. But the 1060 here is quite adequate for the gaming that I'm going to be showing you in just a moment. Running things at 1080p looks great. The blower fan is nice and quiet. It's using, by the way, the Silent Storm cooling is what they call it. And the MSI Click BIOS is nothing different than what I've seen before in other MSI systems that I've built, other boards that I've used from MSI. The only thing that it's missing is the extreme overclocking settings. They don't really have that in here. I mean, this isn't really meant for overclocking, to be honest. But it does have all the features so you can run things cool and quiet. Here we are on Windows 10, which comes preloaded. There's the default wallpaper from MSI. Microsoft, usual type of software. It does come with Office, which is nice, and Norton. The Norton antivirus suite is also installed in here. A little bit of bloatware. It's up to you, to go and clean it, remove things that you don't want from here. But, I didn't really notice an impact on performance. The only thing is, remember, this machine comes with 2 hard drives, an SSD and a standard drive. The SSD is 128 GB, and the other drive is about 1 TB. So it depends on the machine, the configuration you get. Here's the Mystic Light utility, which allows you to configure that LED lighting on the corner that I mentioned on the outside of the case. The MSI Gaming Center allows you to run this on extreme mode, which is what I like to do. I'm going to run this thing over 4 gigahertz, basically, right? I don't want this running on silent mode or on low power mode. I think we should really run this on extreme mode and watch it fly, right? Give us the most you can do, is what I say for the Trident 3. So this little gaming center allows you to basically do, I guess, overclocking, if you want to call it that, without really getting your hands dirty. You're just selecting extreme mode, and then it's just saying, okay, fine, so you want to run this at over 4 gigahertz constantly, so be it. And then you can track also the system information on the wattage, the frequencies, and the temperatures as well. You can see a little bit on what's going on in here, but I'm going to show you this all in detail with some benchmarks coming up anyway. So here we are running this basically on idle, so very little CPU and GPU usage. Obviously, all I'm doing is recording the screen and just showing you this. So you could see here the specs on the processor itself. It is hyper-threaded, 6 cores, 12 threads, running it at over 4 gigahertz because I have it on extreme mode, which is what I like. And basically, you know, you do have a limitation again based on the way this is configured. You don't want to just overdo it and try to push it too much, because there's only so much cooling that it has internally in that. But I do like the fact that, you know, it came with 16 gigs of memory, so more than enough. I won't have to upgrade that for a while. And well, what can I say? I mean, I left everything at the default settings. I didn't see any need to change anything here. And the graphics card, again, the GTX 1060 is more than enough to play the your favorite games on the highest settings at 1080p, right? So here are the specs. Again, if you're curious about that, you can pause the screen at any time. You can see also, by the way, on the right-hand side there, the core temp, that the idle temperatures are hovering around 40 degrees Celsius. Okay, so roughly for the GPU and the CPU, you're going to see that when there's very little consumption of power, and the CPU and GPU is on low, it's about 40 degrees. And if we run the CPU on full-blown 100% load, then obviously the temperatures will shoot up to about 70 degrees Celsius. And that makes sense, right? That makes sense. And again, this is a 65 watt maximum power type of CPU, but the system overall can reach up to 200 watts with the GPU and the CPU all running at 100% load. There are some scenarios to give you an idea on the power, the load, what's being drawn out of this thing at the wall. So you get an idea basically on the low power usage of this system. Okay, now moving along, we're going to do some more benchmarks, but I think you got the idea on you're not going to be running this at 100% all the time, so you're never really going to reach 70 degrees Celsius. You're probably going to run this on maybe gaming mode, and the CPU is going to be fluctuating frequencies, so the temperatures are going to be way lower than this. Like I said, probably around 40 to 50 degrees Celsius. Now, running some benchmarks, first things first, I've got the Performance Test 9.0 utility that I use on all my benchmarks, but I really would want to concentrate mostly here on the CPU mark. So that 15,864 is what I'm concerned about. Not so much the overall system. The overall system mark is comparing it to other types of boards and other CPU configurations, but I'm more concerned about the CPU. The 8700 running here on extreme mode obviously beats all of these processors hands down, so happy about that. Even the GTX 1060 beats previous generations GPUs, which it should. So there you have it. And like I said, this comes with 16 gigs of memory, which is more than enough, but you are limited to the type of memory. It's small form factor SO-DIMM memory, and it's running at 2400 megahertz. And it does have an Intel SSD. Okay, so the SSD isn't earth-shattering speeds. It's not an NVMe SSD. It's a standard SSD. Okay, it's a standard one that's not too shabby when it comes to boot times. Now, here are some comparison scores. Mine is the one in black going across. You can pause the screen at any time if this is going too fast, so you can look at it slowly and see how my score compares to other components. Okay, now if you were to say, well, what's the overall score that this utility is giving? Well, it gave it actually 5-star rating on all of those points. Again, for a small, compact, slim little machine like this, I'm quite impressed. I mean, they packed quite a bit in there, and it's really performing not bad at all. PC Mark 10. Again, we're comparing this processor with this graphics card to other systems with the same CPU but different graphics card. So you can see again how this machine would perform should it have different types of graphics cards in there. Now, Firestrike, again, 11291 is the score that I got. Not necessarily the fastest, but it's not meant to be earth-shattering. Like I said, it's not going to break world records here, but not bad compared to these other machines and their scores. Obviously better than a GTX 980 from the previous generation, but not as good as running a machine that had two of them in SLI, right? But still, this is a GTX 1070. What do you expect? Now, more comparisons, okay? Skydiver, different type of test. Again, did really well. Came very close, actually, to the 4K gaming PC score. So, quite impressive here, considering, this is just a 1060 GTX card. It's not a couple of graphics cards like that one. So, you get the idea here. I mean, we're running things at 1080p. We're getting smooth results and consistent results all across the board when it comes to these future mark graphic benchmark results. We're not going to necessarily beat 980 and SLI, but we'll beat one, that's for sure. On the ADA 64 benchmarks, again, comparing this from the CPU point of view, running it on extreme mode, so that's, again, over 4 gigahertz. It says there 4.3 gigahertz. You can see how well it performs to other 6-core CPUs. Again, pause the screen. This is going too fast, so you can take your time to compare against other CPUs with similar configurations. Again, this is running on a small form factor board, the H310 gaming Trident 3 board, which is limiting what your options are when it comes to the memory. The memory can only run it at 2400 megahertz, as you can see there, CL17 timing. I'm sure if we had faster memory, we'd get a much higher score, but those are the memory read, write, copy, and latency scores that I got with this machine. Moving on now to some SSD benchmarks. If you're curious about the boot times, the sequential read and the write from this Intel SSD, there's the exact model if you're curious about that. Like I said, this isn't the fastest NVMe M.2 drive out there necessarily, so keep that in mind, but it does perform well when it comes to boot times because that's what these are meant for, right? That's why it's a small little drive, 128 gigabytes of space on this SSD, and those are the sequential read and writes and the Atto disk benchmark. And I also ran this on the Crystal Disk Mark, and you can see here that the results are practically identical. So different utilities, different benchmarks are giving similar results, so we have consistency there on the read and the write for the sequential, as you can see, and that's not bad at all. Like I said, it's not earth-shattering results when it comes to the SSD, but this is what you're getting. You get what you pay for in a nice little compact gaming PC such as this one. Now, types of games, well, let's go through a variety. This one here, Fortnite, obviously isn't necessarily very demanding when it comes to graphics, but it does have a lot of action, a lot of stuff going on when you're in multiplayer mode, obviously, here playing. And the more people on there, the more intense it gets. But high frames per second, obviously, on the Epic graphics settings, which is the highest graphics setting that you can run Fortnite on. Call of Duty World War II, you can see there the extra graphics settings. That's basically the recommended optimized graphics settings that it wanted to use, and I had no complaints. That's pretty high to me. And those are the minimum, average, and maximum frames per second. Beautiful results here on that one. Ashes of Singularity, you can see here, this does push the CPU and the GPU to the max. I did run the benchmark on GPU focused so that you could see the results. Again, running this at 1080p. Those are all the results right there. Pause the screen if you're curious and seeing that more. Now, Battlefield 5, latest and greatest, one of my favorite games right now. You can see right there. Those are the settings that I'm running this game at. Again, 1080p, but running it on high settings. And you can see there, beautiful results. The average frames per second, 86. Not bad at all. Of course, it varies. It will fluctuate depending on what mode, map you're playing on. You might see this go even higher, right? But not complaining at all. You know, for a tiny little machine like this, I mean, yes, this is fairly high. You bet it's fairly high and fairly smooth when it comes to gaming. So terrific product from MSI, the Trident 3 Slim VR ready gaming PC. Comment below, let me know what you think. I'll add the link to the different configurations if you're interested to see what else they have to offer. And again, thank you for watching.